The culture war over curls. Can workplaces tell women that the natural look isn't professional? Today, Facebook exploded with kinks, coils, curls, and controversy. And the CWU says City Hall is straight up lying about the negotiation for a collective bargaining agreement. Also, we'll talk to the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry, which is going back 2 years to look into shady sales of government assets. Plus Greg Chuck, he's the first Commissioner of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, but will he be called a sellout for taking a job with the government? You'll hear what he said when we asked him today. We've got details of these and other stories in our newscast for tonight, Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Good evening. With your news, I'm Indira Craig.
For hydration, when the choice is yours, choose the brand you have always trusted. Crystal Water. Taste you can trust.
Dear Belize, the coronavirus has swept across the world, including our beloved country. It has impacted our health and devastated our economy. But all is not lost. Collectively, we all can make a difference. We can take precautions and protect ourselves and each other. Limit your social interactions and stay safe with the people you love. We are living in a new normal, but we can still enjoy all the wonderful things that Belize has to offer. Everything is still there. That little spot on the beach you love, your favorite restaurant, the friendly faces. Let's commit to wearing our masks, sanitizing, physical distancing, and washing hands regularly. So stay safe today so we can enjoy tomorrow together. Sincerely, an optimistic Belizean.
Money. What is it? It's a tool, traditionally made from a small piece of paper or metal and handed from person to person, traded for food, clothes, or anything else you desire. These days, we don't rely on physical money much. Money has become a stream of ones and zeros, endlessly cycling around the globe on a superhighway called the internet. But where did money come from? And where will it go next? Sometimes the best way to see what comes next is to look at the past, and the idea of money was invented way before the beginning of written history. It all started with the barter system. If you were a farmer in these days, leftover crops would be traded for bread from the baker. In ancient China, instead of carrying around hundreds of items around with them, people began to carry small tokens that represented the items that they wanted to trade. Ultimately, these tokens were replaced with abstract circles that could represent any item. According to early writings, Roman soldiers were paid in salt. It is believed that this is where the word salary comes from. The first coin we recognize today were issued in Turkey, and they were made of electrum, a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver. Moving from coins, paper money was introduced around 700 AD and was developed by the Chinese shortly after they invented woodblock printing. They called it flying cash, as it had a tendency to be carried away by the wind. When Marco Polo visited China in the 1200s, he brought the idea of paper money back to Europe with him. Paper money wouldn't see widespread adoption in the West until mid-1600s, when banks started issuing notes that promised to pay bearers on demand a sum of gold. Merchants found it much simpler just to trade the notes with each other, rather than lugging around large amounts of unwieldy metals. During the American Civil War, both sides issued huge amounts of government-backed paper currency to fund the war, as they weren't enough gold. Union currency became known as greenbacks. The green ink on the reverse side is a color we still associate with money. Fast forward to 1946, the world's first charge card, named simply Charge It, was introduced. It was limited compared to modern credit cards, but proved such a useful concept that it led to the creation of Bank AmeriCard, now known as Visa. and MasterCard. With the introduction of ATM and cash machines in the 1980s, money had finally entered the digital age. And now everyone need to carry around a debit card, along with their PIN number, and they could access their money anywhere that had one of these machines. Then came the rapid growth of adoption of the World Wide Web. Electronic money services had emerged, giving customers an alternative to traditional cash. Coupled with innovative technologies such as chips and pins, people around the world now enjoy making contactless payment at their favorite stores. It's now more clear than ever that our reliance on physical cash is on a steep decline. Convenience and security is what will pave the way forward for how business and customers transact in years to come. The phenomenon is coming to the Belize market. Digital wallet, a powerful option to physical wallets. Digital wallet can be very handy, as they can get rid of carrying cash everywhere. Digital wallet proves to be safe, easy, and immediate way for customers to pay online and further minimize the hassle related to cash transaction or waiting in line for long periods of time. The digital wallet is developed to increase customer safety and convenience significantly. So what does the future hold? The future is now, and it's powered by eCash.
Electricity. We use it to power our appliances, charge our devices, and light our home. Let's all practice energy conservation at home and in the workplace. That's unplug chargers when not in use, lights off when not in the room, turn off fans and TVs. You can also look for Energy Star products and change lights to LEDs, which reduce energy cost. Let's all save energy.
Caused the intense flooding overnight in the western and southern parts of the country.
Yeah?
Do we need to renew the insurance policy?
Price Highway
The
and
insurance
the
policy?
Highway were impassable.
Oh,
as
let me
water
check.
gushed across the thoroughfare.
Renew your policies, file a claim, and even send us a message using RFNG online.
No, we're good. It says we're covered.
Okay, great.
It pays to get it right with RFNG Insurance, a road group company.
You have a neighbor throwing a party? Do you know of anyone holding a social event? Have you seen people not following protocols set in place to reduce the spread of COVID-19? If so, report them immediately. Use SMART or BTL and call 0800-PARTIES. That's 0800-727-8432. Our COVID-19 hotlines are available 24/7. These violators are putting your health and everyone you love at risk. Call our COVID-19 hotlines and report all violators. This message was brought to you by the Belize Police Department.
For that week, we've been following the labor dispute between the Christian Workers Union and the Belize City Council. Last week, the CWU announced in a press release that it will not accept CITCO's position that it will send a counter-proposal for their collective bargaining agreement on March 31st. The union is demanding a date before the municipal elections. Mayor Bernard Wagner responded last Friday saying that his council does not intend to bind another council to a CBA right before elections. But what CWU's president explained today via their Zoom press conference is that they are not seeking a signed CBA a month before elections, but rather an opportunity to sit around and be in the discussion table. But according to a document sent by CITCO's PR, they were in fact given that opportunity during a virtual meeting on December 23rd. The document states, quote, during a virtual conference held December 23rd of 2020 with the CWU, the president flatly denied a request by the BCC to discuss the CBA and demanded the counter-proposal in writing, end quote. Today, when we asked Hyde that is about this, he said plainly that is a flat-out lie.
If such a document was officially released and is officially the position of the Belize City Council, then that's a lie. In the event that that was done, if that exists, if that is real, then that is an absolute lie.
So they never approached you saying, hey, let's discuss the CBA?
No. Then it would mean that we are either fools or liars to be here right now. That we denied a discussion about the CBA. Well, let me go back to that meeting then. That meeting came out of the uproar that was caused by the change in a commitment to provide a 50% remaining outstanding salaries that was taken during the height of the pandemic. And they changed it, and the members were in an uproar. And we engaged them to try to see if we could have a resolution. And that was the essence of the meeting. And in that meeting, we were told that all this union wants to talk about is CBA. In that meeting, we were told that instead of being grateful for not being fired during the pandemic, like so many different places, that instead of expressing the gratitude, the union and its reps want to talk about CBA. How does, quote unquote, how does CBA have anything to do with the fact that you were not fired? You should be grateful. And we expressed how offended we were by that. And we expressed at that point in time that we were tired of being put off on the matter of a counter proposal, and that we required of the council a deadline, and that the deadline for that deadline to be presented to us would be the end of the week, and that by the end of the week we wanted to know by what time we would get our counter proposals. So it couldn't be anything further from the truth when it comes to the matter of the CBA. In fact, we were essentially mocked and essentially chastised even for bringing up the matter of the CBA. So I have not heard that. And I hope that that is not what is being officially stated, because that is absolutely untrue.
Hyde also clarified the CWU's case, emphasizing the need for negotiations to at least begin.
The characterization of the CW position that was described in the interview last Friday by the mayor, that this is an effort to do a last-minute kind of extortion of the present administration so as to bind future administration to create a signed CBA that then is handed off to whichever administration takes over City Hall after the upcoming municipal elections is extremely inaccurate. As we have said to the City Council, this is not rocket science. We have been a part of many collective bargaining processes. The counter proposals usually take about 6 weeks, roughly, for us to get a response. And so the fact that we are now 15 months or 16 months in this kind of circling pattern, waiting and waiting to get our counter proposals, is absolutely unacceptable. And in our view, we don't have an explanation for it. We cannot accept that the pandemic has been so disruptive that the matter of having a replacement upgraded version of the present workers' contract is unable to be completed, or at the very least, a counter proposal presented to us. I don't have a problem in discussing pandemic-related economics, but what that does, however, is lend credibility to the false narrative that the CWU's problem is one of getting a CBA signed and getting all the proposals that we have presented signed intact. And that far from what it is we have described and what we are trying to describe. What we're describing is that this is a natural process where we sit down and we negotiate. The case to be made about what the economic realities are, that is to be made around the negotiating table.
The CWU submitted their proposal in October 2019. The council stated that they had assigned a team in early 2020, but before they had the chance to create the counter-proposal, COVID-19 struck. Oh, there's an all-out culture war over curls raging in Belize tonight. It's happening in private offices, government administrative centers, and on every social media feed. But it started in the Belmopan City Council, where one young woman was told to straighten her hair because it was, quote, offensive. And tonight, Cherise Halsal has a conversation with Senator Isabel Bennett, a woman who proudly wears her crown of kinks in Belize's Senate. She says hair is part of racial identity.
She's the girl that launched 1,000 posts, but Cheyenne Banner had no idea that her refusal to follow her supervisor's suggestion to, quote, do something about her naturally styled afro would inspire naturals all over Belize and effectively start a movement. And among the hashtag Belizean Afro posts, there were even snaps of some natural hair higher-ups, women like the Chief Justice, Michelle Arana, and PUP Senator Isabel Bennett. I caught up with Bennett this afternoon to have a chat about what was once the taming of the kink and why she believes it's got to stop.
But it's kind of something that we do to our black girls, if I could use that word. And we put them through a rite of passage kind of thing. It's going to high school now, you have to have your hair straight kind of thing. But I would discourage any mother, if your child is natural, keep it like that. Help her to learn and embrace every kink that she has, because that's the naturalness in which she was born. It's how, I guess to a large extent, the colonial past that we still carry in our country, because a lot of the Caribbean countries have changed those policies and they're more embracing the characteristics of who we are as a black person or as a black race. So yes, some people will have that, and so it therefore means that we need to go back and revise any kind of document that may speak to those kind of trends, because we need to liberate our people and not suppress. If it's time, it has long been, because I think just as with domestic violence, a lot of women that have kinky hair like mine are insulted or are threatened or at times intimidated by their employers, etc., even in their working environment, and they don't speak out about it. Your hair is part of your identity, it's part of your race.
And if hair and its presentation is linked to race, then one activist told us that that limitation is nothing more than discrimination.
I think discrimination on any level is discrimination, whether it's how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you look. And I believe that if the story has that much validity that she's actually being targeted for her hair, that is something that should be championed. I was making mention earlier that it should be something that's a movement, because we have a lot of women here with natural hair. We had the issue with the police, the women in the police department who were told they could not wear dreadlocks. Coming from the military, I know there are some restrictions as well in regards to the hairstyle. And I think the police department and the Belize Defense Force, those are strict entities. There's justification as to why your hair should be a certain way. However, if you're out there working and that is your that's your comfort zone, this is you embracing your blackness, this is you showing that I am a proud black woman, I think discrimination on any levels in regards to that is definitely condemned. Next, you'll hear she'll have to wear baggy clothes so her hips don't show or her breasts don't show. She's a woman and she's expressing herself from the tip of her hair to the tip of her toe. So she should not be discriminated or sanctioned for that.
And despite the controversy going on at Belmopan City Council, wider society has embraced natural hair, with many believing that the variety being expressed is simply adding colors to the human rainbow.
Before I had my natural hair, you would get the hiss and the huss from the men on the street kind of thing. But it's interesting now, the dimension is so wide that you get the compliment, and you get real, genuine compliment from men. Miss, I love your natural. Whoa, you. And it's like, well, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. When I attend the Senate and I wear my hair in those particular afros, depending on the size, the style, etc., if I'm giving off that message, I am happy to do so, because then I hope that it's a liberating message to mothers, fathers, and girls who are coming up with my kind of kinky hair.
Cherise Halsall, 7 News.
We reached out to Cheyenne Banner for comment, but she refrained, telling us only that the matter is still ongoing. Last night, we told you that Prime Minister John Briceño has given the green light for the formation of a commission of inquiry. The commissioners are tasked to investigate the sale of government assets by the Barrow administration between the period of October 2019 to November 2020, their last month in office. It's a follow-up to agitation by the Public Service Union. The union said that they were receiving persistent reports that the outgoing administration was having a self-regulated fire sale on government assets. The 3-member commission is led by Chairman Andrew Marshall-Ek, the PSU's representative Luke Martinez, and the representative from the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Marcelo Blake. Today, we got a chance to briefly speak with Chairman Marshall-Ek about what will happen during this inquiry and how they will go about investigating if government assets were sold off at obscenely low prices, as the PSU described the situation. Here's what he had to say about the very early stages of the commission.
Well, there's a Commission of Inquiries Act, which empowers the Prime Minister to constitute commission inquiries to look into matters which he considers appropriate. He's obviously decided, based on the many allegations that have swirled, that a commission of inquiry is required to look into the sale of government assets in the 2 years leading up to the change of government.
Okay, sir, have you had any conversations with the Prime Minister or any members of the Office of the OPM on this particular topic as yet?
No, except to agree to serve as chairman and to pursue the investigations. Nothing has happened yet insofar as the commission is concerned. I understand, well, based on the law, that it needs to be published in the Gazette and oaths need to be taken by the commissioners, and once that's done, then the commission can start its work. The way the commission and commissions of inquiries generally work is that they're empowered to summon and examine witnesses, require the production of documents, so that the process starts there.
Yesterday's GOB announcement said that the Prime Minister has directed that the meetings be held in public. Dates and venues will be published. He's the Secretary General of the UDP, but reports say that Alberto August will be charged in Cayo for spreading false news. We are told it is in relation to a post he made in November about a person who had allegedly been a victim of police brutality but was actually in an accident. August made a Facebook post about the pending charge today, seeming to address Commissioner Chester Williams. It points out that police have let other cases of Facebook circulated false news from the media, quote, slide. But, quote, now you are forcing your police against their will to arrest Alberto August, end quote. From there, August goes on to make a less than vile veil that is threat to the senior cop, saying, quote, let it be known, sir, that you have too many skeletons in your closet to be venturing down this slippery, victimizing slope solely for the purpose of showcasing yourself in the eyes of your political bosses as you seek their favors to keep your job, end quote. August will go to the San Ignacio police station for his charge on Friday. After the break, Commissioner of Indigenous Peoples Affairs Greg Chuck, he's been in the fight for his Maya people for 2 decades. But is he now being co-opted to fight on the side of the government? That's what we asked him. And LGBTQ Belizeans, what about their families? What rights do they have? They say not many, and now they want the same human rights as anyone else. Don't go away.
Electricity is an essential part of our daily lives. We use lights and household appliances every day. Therefore, we must ensure our homes are wired properly. At Benny's, we have certified wires with the right gauges and insulation. BEL certified meter sockets, authentic GE and Square D panel boxes and breakers, which protect your electrical system from being overloaded. When wiring your home, avoid imitation brands which can be very dangerous. Give yourself and your family peace of mind using genuine electrical products available at Benny's. Quality and savings.
Delicate, the beer of Belize.
You've worked hard your whole life building your future, your family, your business, your home. And when you aren't around to safeguard your most beloved assets, you are at ease because you know they are protected by RF&G Insurance. For over 50 years, RF&G has been making sure business owners get back to work after an accident, and families get back into their homes quickly after a natural disaster. At RF&G, it's you who matters most. Visit us today and learn why it pays to get it right. RF&G Insurance, a Rowe Group company.
Electricity. We use it to power our appliances, charge our devices, and light our home. Let's all practice energy conservation at home and in the workplace. That's unplug chargers when not in use, lights off when not in the room, turn off fans and TVs. You can also look for Energy Star products and change lights to LEDs, which reduce energy cost. Let's all save energy.
Contraband is the illegal importation of goods such as alcohol, tobacco, foods, and parts. Apart from breaking the law, smugglers are also now endangering the health of all Belizeans. They risk bringing coronavirus into Belize with their contraband. To keep COVID-19 out of Belize, everyone entering the country is screened and quarantined. But contraband smugglers are not using legal entry points and are bypassing all safety measures. And these same smugglers are moving among the population. They could be carrying the virus. By coming into the country illegally, they could cause outbreaks of COVID-19. Buying or smuggling contraband is putting yourself, your family, and the entire country at risk. Report smuggling. For SMART, call 0800-JUMPERS or 0800-BORDERS. For Digi, 0800-SAVE-BZE. This message is brought to you by the Belize Police Department and the Belize Bank.
El contrabando es importar ilegalmente productos como el alcohol, tabaco, comida y objetos. Aparte de romper la ley, los contrabandistas están poniendo ahora en riesgo la salud de los beliceños. Ellos arriesgan traer coronavirus a Belice por medio de sus contrabandos. Para mantener el COVID-19 fuera de Belice, todos los que entren al país son examinados y encuarentenados. Sin embargo, los contrabandistas no utilizan los puntos de entrada legal y se saltan todas las medidas de seguridad. Estos mismos traficantes se están moviendo entre la población. Ellos podrían tener el virus. Al entrar ilícitamente al país, esto puede provocar un brote de COVID-19. Comprar o traficar contrabando te pone a ti, a tu familia y a todo tu país en riesgo. Para números de Smart, llama al 0800-586-7377, 0800-267-3377 y para Digi 0800-728-3293 para reportar cualquier actividad de contrabando. Este mensaje es presentado por el Departamento de Policía de Belice y el Banco de Belice.
You have a neighbor throwing a party? Do you know of anyone holding a social event? Have you seen people not following protocols set in place to reduce the spread of COVID-19? If so, report them immediately. Use SMART or BTL and call 0800-PARTIES. That's 0800-727-8432. Our COVID-19 hotlines are available 24/7. These violators are putting your health and everyone you love at risk. Call our COVID-19 hotlines and report all violators. This message was brought to you by the Belize Police Department.
Last night, we told you about the Senate meeting scheduled for tomorrow at the National Assembly in Belmopan. It's stirring up controversy because of a government motion to ratify the treaty known as the United Nations Convention on the Recognition and Enforcement of Foreign Arbitral Awards by Belize. Some in the UDP argue that this is a fulfillment of the Ashcroft Alliance agenda, since the Belize Bank has a pending multi-million-dollar arbitral award against the government of Belize. Seeking to still the waters and put the minds of a wary public at ease this evening, a government press release explained that Belize recognized this convention back in October of 1980 before independence and has consented to its continued applicability in September of 1982. But the release adds that Belize is one of only 33 countries that has failed to formally ratify the agreement. The government says that the purpose for formal ratification, apart from fulfilling Belize's international obligations, is to facilitate the possibility of a debt for conservation-related transaction. The Briceño administration says that ratification by the Senate was in process before the November general elections. Well, today the former Attorney General Mike Purfy told us, quote, ratification was never in the process under our government. That's a lie. He'll have his chance to say his part when it is debated in the Senate tomorrow, when the government side says that it is also looking forward to describing and debating the importance of this convention. Last night we told you about the name of the first Commissioner of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, Greg Chuck. It's an interesting assignment for former NGO leader and now trained attorney. For over a decade, starting from the early 2000s, Chuck led the fight to have the communal land rights of Mayan communities recognized. He escalated that to international pressure in 2004 with a scathing report from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which urged government to redress wrongs committed against the Maya of Belize. We outline a brief portion of this history to show that Greg Chuck has bona fides for days, so that can't be questioned. But now, is he playing for the other team as he is in charge of implementing the 2015 CCJ consent order and judgment? Well, that's what we asked him today via Zoom. He spoke from his attorney chambers in Punta Gorda town.
I've seen you in that struggle from the early 2000s at least, for the struggle for the rights of indigenous people. And that really has been, to a large extent, your life's work. And now suddenly, you're on the other side of the power equation.
I would not have taken this post had I not had the commitment of the Prime Minister of Belize and my minister, Minister Dolores Balderramos Garcia. I believe there is a genuine intention to move forward. Where I am now, I think that it gives me an opportunity to provide a path that allows me to, and the communities and of course the government to complete the work that I started. I think we've been too long in this chapter. And I think the time has come for us to close the chapter and move on with the community benefiting from the judgment of the court and the government benefiting from the development that I expect and I hope the community will be involved in.
One immediately has to ask the question, have you sold out? Oftentimes, there is a push and pull between what the state has to do for all its citizens and what the indigenous community seeks for its membership.
I think, and it has always been that what the indigenous community wants to achieve is what the government of Belize seeks to achieve for indigenous people. The difficulty has been that there has not been able to perhaps find the right formula to move past the differences that seem to have consumed the time that we've been able to engage. My view on this is that I can create that process of reconciliation. And I don't think that the leadership of the Maya communities, the Kekchi Council of Belize, the Toledo Maya Cultural Council, the Toledo's Alcaldes Association, the Toledo Maya Women's Council, and the chairpersons of Toledo Village Council sees as a sellout, rather an opportunity.
Is it that you are to oversee the full implementation of the judgment, or is it that you are to sort of ensure that the state's interests are preserved while also respecting the wisdom and the directives of the ruling?
It's all of the above, Jules. It's all of the above.
Is it that some in your own community or some within the Maya land rights struggle may view you with distrust now as an agent of the state?
Jules, the many calls that I've received from many leaders and ordinary Maya in the community has been overwhelming in support of the decision to take up this appointment.
As Chuck alluded to, the well wishes and endorsements have been flowing in from indigenous groups, including the Toledo Maya Cultural Council, the Maya Leaders Alliance, and the Kekchi Council of Belize. And while they support Chuck, those indigenous groups certainly do not support a word that the Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs used just 2 months ago. It's the word balkanization, an ugly word for the Mayas because it refers to fragmentation of the nation state into smaller regions or states based on ethnicity. The Mayas take that as a disrespect, and we asked Chuck about its repeated use by PUP leaders over many years.
And I must state this very categorically as Prime Minister of Belize, that I will not preside over the balkanization of Belize. I will not create a homeland just for Maya, or a homeland just for Garifuna, or a homeland just for Creole. All of Belize belongs to all of Belizeans. And that is the number one and the first principle.
We recognize those rights, but it does not have to be at the expense of the balkanization of this country. We have one country, we have one Belize, and we're all Belizeans.
There must be no balkanization of the country of Belize.
I know that word is a word that historically has caused great indignation or disquietude in the Maya communities. How do you square yourself against with a government now that has gone on record many times in 2 decades saying there will be no balkanization of Belize? How do you square that with your people?
Well, I cannot speak for why the former Prime Minister, Said Musa, said those words, and also why the new Prime Minister said those words in the past. But I am not looking at the past, I'm looking at the present. And it has always been my belief over the last 20 years when I was leading the Maya land rights struggle, that there is no such thing as balkanization. And I want to be able to, in this new position, demonstrate that whoever consider that there is and can be a balkanization, that there's no such thing, and that the Maya community just want certainty over their right. The record is there. It's not me saying it, but the record is there that the Right Honorable Said Musa's government was the one that negotiated the 10 points of agreement that for the first time recognized the right of the Maya people to their land. It was the government of the Right Honorable Said Musa that did not appeal the 2007 landmark judgment. So the evidence is to the contrary, Jules, and I would like to believe that this time around, this government of the Honorable Johnny Bersenio wants to finish that work.
But I'll just read a quote from your minister on November 24th of this year. She said, "There must be no balkanization of the country of Belize, but at the same time, the consent order of the court, having recognized that there are customary land rights in terms of communal land and individual land, we have to find a way to work together." But there it is.
Jules, the Constitution of Belize is the supreme law of the land, and I understand what is required of the consent order. It's really not there or here for me. I am in this position now. I've taken up this appointment, and it's for me to provide that advice and to demonstrate that the government and the community can build a partnership.
Chuck will be taking up the job full-time and taking a break from his work as an attorney. And from Indigenous rights to equal rights, today hundreds of Belizean children are growing up in families that include LGBTQ parents. It's a familiar structure that faces unique challenges, most which have to do with the illegitimacy of the unions on which they are based. It's a cause championed by Managing Director of Our Circle, Derica Castillo Salazar. And this morning, her group hosted a media breakfast to advance their cause, sensitize the public, and lobby decision makers.
It was a media sensitization breakfast at Our Circle this morning. A sumptuous feast, yes, but what was really being served up was the awareness of the challenges faced by families composed of LGBTQ persons. Our guide through this little understood field was Derica Castillo Salazar, a former BDF soldier turned NGO managing director who's also raising a young son within a same-sex relationship.
We're not asking for a seat at the table. The inalienable right for us to be able to have families. It's something that's given to every individual. So we're not asking for a seat, we're asking them to do a revision, which would include family structures such as ours.
That's a revision to the law books, which would require fundamental changes to many societally agreed upon pronouns, gender norms, and most importantly, definitions of what constitutes a partnership.
We created a public policy team where we're looking at the laws which definitely create some form of difference between our families and the families of persons who are in heterosexual relationships. So we're doing that review to be able to submit a recommendation of all the laws that we see are creating the most discrimination, and we're going to be submitting that through the parliament to be able to get some form of redress in regards to getting that security that our families deserve.
And like all the other cracks in society, those concerns have become much more immediate during the pandemic.
If we look at the way these grocery bag systems are put up, there is not much leverage to support families that are head by LGBT persons. Because it ties a lot within the social security system, we see that the LGBT couples who are already not supported by social security schemes are further disadvantaged, particularly because the families, the head of the families aren't considered in legal relationships. So when catering to a family as opposed to it being a two adult family, it would be considered as a one adult and however much children are being catered for, as opposed to looking at the entire family, because of course these same-sex persons are not legally covered as families here in Belize.
And it's not just food security that's at stake. It's also the education of hundreds of children.
A lot of the LGBT persons, due to the COVID restrictions, have gained employment in the call centers, the BPO industry. So we see that a lot of them are working from home. So while some of the issues that are being flagged includes time to be able to cater to their children, to give these distance learning, or the fact that the kids are out of school. We do see that within the LGBT community, a lot of the persons who have children are they have the time, their children are there, but it's the resources for them to be able to gain, either if it's a virtual lesson. Some of them are working and have to choose between logging online to make the money or giving that data to their child to be on these virtual lessons.
In Belize, difficult choices for families comprised of same-sex couples abound. That's because their unions aren't recognized, meaning that matters of a partner's estate in the event of their death get complicated.
Social security, it's a big thing, and I'm sure it's something you're going to be hearing a lot when we start challenging some of these systems which exist, because with the social security system, we're paying into these systems. If we have children within our households, it's only the biological parent that can provide that support or that protection for the children within our families. And another big thing is looking at the reality of COVID. COVID, to some point, is synonymous to death. So at some point, it will be where if something were to happen to one of the partners who is not the biological parent of that child, then there's the possibility of family members coming from nowhere, not being integral in that child's life, and disrupting what has been their normal family up to date.
Cherise Halsell, 7 News.
According to Our Circle, there are over 100 LGBTQ families living in Belize. Earlier on in the news, you heard from attorney Andrew Marshall-Eck, who will chair the Commission of Inquiry looking into the sale of government assets in the 2 years before the change of government. But Marshall-Eck is a man with multiple official tasks. He also holds another important seat as the new chairman of the BEL Board of Directors. This morning, we asked Marshall-Eck to discuss what kind of leadership role he will take.
Problems with the delays in delivery of justices and delays within the court system on a whole, both on the criminal and civil side, have been perennial. I mean, they've been ongoing last 20, 30 years, and that's only as far as I have been around and can recollect from my own memory. We've had the problem reoccur time and time again. In fact, you will recall that the bar had made efforts in conflict with the bench over some 55, 60 judgments at the time that were delayed for years, of which it was then Judge Awich that was responsible for the bulk of them. In the face of that performance, he was actually promoted to the Court of Appeal. And after Chief Justice Conte left, he was replaced by Chief Justice Benjamin, and he came in and left us with the very same state of affairs by the time he left. And the problem seems to be growing rather than being contained. And certainly the judiciary itself has had decades to confront and grapple with this for itself. And unfortunately, I think it has shown that it's I wouldn't be able to discuss that with you. I'm not seized of that information. But what I can tell you with regard to your allegation of profit, general electricity services is vital to economic development, and it is crucial that the prices are fair. It's also critical that they're fixed in such a way that BEL is allowed and given space to operate and prosper. The two things must coexist. They're essential. The utility service provider must be in a position to provide the services, and Belizean public as a whole must be provided with the services at a reasonable cost.
When the pandemic had first hit and Belizeans started to feel the pain, the financial pains that came with that, there was this agitation for BEL to hold off on collection for customers because they were going through this financial pain at that time. And that's when the then management presented to the general public that, look, that cannot happen because we have our own light bills to pay. I think it was something like $15 million a month, if I'm not mistaken.
BEL sources electricity from CFE. It also buys from BECOL, from the power produced by the dams, and there are also a number of other providers of electricity, Belcogen, to name one. So BEL must pay for the services, must pay for the energy, and those costs have to be covered.
Is it a concern for you that the quantum that is paid, that is necessary to provide stable electricity for Belizeans?
Yes, it's always in the interest of BEL to keep those costs under control. But the reality is that to a large extent, those prices are not under the control of BEL.
And finally, from our interview with Marshall Eck, he shared his views on the Briceño government's draft bill to impose a deadline for all judges to deliver decisions in cases they've heard. It's called the Time Limit for Judicial Decisions Bill 2020. It's the government's initial idea on how to hold judicial officers accountable for protracted delays in the delivery of judgments, which have plagued the justice system for years. This draft bill contemplates that judgments should be handed down no later than 120 days after a full hearing has concluded before a judge. The bill also says, quote, a judge may be removed from office for persistently failing to give written decisions and reasons for decisions within the time specified, end quote. Marshall Eck, who is a senior attorney, a former president of the Bar Association of Belize, and an occasional battler with the bench, told us why he thinks the bill, if it is passed, is a positive step.
Problems with the delays in delivery of justices and delays within the court system on a whole, both on the criminal and civil side, have been perennial. I mean, they've been ongoing last 20, 30 years, and that's only as far as I have been around and can recollect from my own memory. We've had the problem reoccur time and time again. In fact, you will recall that the bar had made efforts in conflict with the bench over some 55, 60 judgments at the time that were delayed for years, of which it was then Judge Awich that was responsible for the bulk of them. In the face of that performance, he was actually promoted to the Court of Appeal. And after Chief Justice Conte left, he was replaced by Chief Justice Benjamin, and he came in and left us with the very same state of affairs by the time he left. And the problem seems to be growing rather than being contained. And certainly the judiciary itself has had decades to confront and grapple with this for itself. And unfortunately, I think it has shown that it's unable to do so in an effective way. So I think the legislation is a welcome change. It's not new to Belize. It's been done elsewhere, Barbados and Guyana. And I'm hopeful it will change the culture and the approach taken by the judiciary to the need to deliver judgments in a timely way. The need for resources, of course, also evident, but I think there's always been a willingness, or rather an eagerness to call upon that as an excuse when standards are not being met. And certainly it's a factor, but I think there are other factors as well which can be addressed, which are being ignored. We've had instances here, and this is extreme, it has happened, where persons have been, and the delays are at both levels of the court, both at the Court of Appeal level and the Supreme Court level, where there's been convictions, there's been an appeal, and because the Supreme Court hasn't been able to produce records for the appeal to proceed, the appeal is delayed repeatedly, year after year after year, to the point where the sentence was served and completed before the appeal could be adjudicated upon. That is an instance of a complete denial of justice arising out of delay. It is a very serious thing, and the Belizean public deserves timely justice. And certainly judges deserve access to resources to be able to provide it. But the lack of resources isn't an excuse for not doing so. When you embark upon a case, you need to see it through. And you have an obligation to see it through before you embark upon the other one. You can't just simply be embarking upon all of them and not deciding any of them.
Marshall added that this bill is a declaration of the law as it already exists, because persistently failing to deliver timely judgments equates to a judge not properly doing his or her job. 20 days ago, the family of the deceased Gregory Bowen announced their intent to sue the police department for his death, which happened while he was in police custody. During the New Year's holiday weekend, he was being detained at the Queen Street police station, and in between police checks of the cell block area, he managed to hang himself using a pair of trousers. Police said that he was not known to be a mental patient, but his family strongly refuted that. They said that police were well aware of his struggles with mental illness and that they took him for medical assistance the evening of his detention. The family's attorney, O.J. Elrington, wrote a lawyer letter last Friday to the Minister of Home Affairs, the Commissioner of Police, and the Attorney General's ministry. In that letter, Elrington says, quote, "The wrongful death was a result of the negligence of the Belize Police Department. We are now, therefore, demanding an undertaking that proper administrative procedures be set up in the Belize Police Department to ensure the protection of persons suffering from mental illness in your custody. An undertaking that facilitates to assist suffering from mental illness will be properly equipped and monetary compensation in the sum of $205,000 to cover funeral expenses, pain, suffering, and other damages to which the estate is entitled." End quote. Elrington warns that if he does not receive a response from the government within 7 days, he is instructed to institute legal proceedings against him. We'll take a break now. When we come back, it's the most explosive public building ever constructed. But who will manage the Civic Center now that the government has changed? Well, that's what we asked the Minister of Sports today. Don't go away.
Electricity is an essential part of our daily lives. We use lights and household appliances every day. Therefore, we must ensure our homes are wired properly. At Benny's, we have certified wires with the right gauges and insulation. BEL certified meter sockets, authentic GE and Square D panel boxes and breakers, which protect your electrical system from being overloaded. When wiring your home, avoid imitation brands which can be very dangerous. Give yourself and your family peace of mind using genuine electrical products available at Benny's. Quality and savings.
For hydration, when the choice is yours, choose the brand you have always trusted. Crystal Water. Taste you can trust.
Electricity. We use it to power our appliances, charge our devices, and light our home. Let's all practice energy conservation at home and in the workplace. That's unplug chargers when not in use, lights off when not in the room, turn off fans and TVs. You can also look for Energy Star products and change lights to LEDs, which reduce energy cost. Let's all save energy.
Caused the intense flooding overnight in the western and southern parts of the country.
Yeah?
Do we need to renew the insurance policy?
The insurance policy?
Highway were impassable.
Oh, let me check.
Renew your policies, file a claim, and even send us a message using RFNG online.
No, we're good. It says we're covered.
Okay, great.
It pays to get it right with RFNG Insurance, a Road Group company.
You have a neighbor throwing a party? Do you know of anyone holding a social event? Have you seen people not following protocols set in place to reduce the spread of COVID-19? If so, report them immediately. Use SMART or BTL and call 0800 parties. That's 0800 727 8432. Our COVID-19 hotlines are available 24/7. These violators are putting your health and everyone you love at risk. Call our COVID-19 hotlines and report all violators. This message was brought to you by the Belize Police Department.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness is reporting tonight that one new COVID-related death, a man, was reported today. The case fatality rate now stands at 2.49%. Out of 270 COVID tests that were completed today, 28 were confirmed as new positives for a daily positivity rate of 10.4%. There are 306 new cases under investigation, 49 new recoveries, 11 active hospitalizations, and 2 of those patients are admitted to intensive care. And because of COVID, the Civic Center has not been used for the sporting activities and other events it was built for. But out of sight does not mean out of mind. And the Ministry of Sports has set its sights on managing the $33 million facility. According to Minister Kevin Bernard, the building is currently under the Ministry of Infrastructure, but he is looking for collaboration with private sector to transfer the management where he believes it rightfully belongs, under the Sports Council. He spoke to us via Zoom.
Currently, of course, as you will very well know, the Civic Center is under the care and auspices of the under bill, which is under the Ministry of Infrastructure and Development. And so we are working closely with the Minister, Minister Julius, to ensure that we can look at ways that we can bring over back the Civic Center over to under our control. But we have to be real. This is a very huge, expensive building, and the cost that we have and the budget that we currently have, and then for the Ministry of Youth for Sports is very limited. But under this new government, and under the commitment by our Prime Minister to ensure that youth and sports gets its right attention. That is the reason why we have a ministry now of youth and sports and e-governance. And youth and sports play a critical role. And so we are looking at where we can where we can partner with the Belize City Council. Like I said, it is not something that has been final. It is still under bill. It's still under the Ministry of Infrastructure Development. And so we have been in negotiation with them. And I know that at the end of the day, that it's a sporting facility. It was always under the NSC. So we at some point, we must return the facility under the NSC. When I spoke to the minister and the cost that is being levied on the monthly maintenance for this facility is very huge. So we have to look at that. With our new budget cycle coming up, we are looking at presenting a comprehensive plan. But like I said, we have to look at partners. We have to look at stakeholders. We have to look at how we can jointly work with the Civic Center. And I think that we cannot continue to operate it in that white elephant opportunity, but we have to start to look at it from a venture opportunity where people can, the organization that maintains it, start to also see some form of revenue.
But for now, the Civic Center remains closed as sporting activities are illegal under the quarantine laws. But a group of footballers didn't let that stop them. While they were playing in the Banana Bank area over the weekend, police officers broke them up. But one player identified as Dale Pelayo told the officers that the match was sanctioned by the Ministry of Sports since the players were part of a national selection. The ministry clarified in the strongest terms that they would never sanction an illegal sporting match. But he did allude to the possibility of restrictions against sporting events and gyms becoming a little lax with new regulations that will be announced soon.
The Ministry of Sports has never sanctioned any such event. And I had made a statement clearly, making that clear in the sense that we had no indication that this was happening. When I was approached through text by certain individuals and both by the police department, I had to make it clear, that the ministry never did sanction anything, and I would never do that. And I know that people want to get back to some form of normalcy but they must respect the regulations. And I will stick by that. And I said it yesterday in cabinet. I made certain plea for certain sporting programs. And I know that we have to respect the conditions that is facing us from a health perspective. And I respect my colleagues. And I know that from the Ministry of Health perspective, we cannot at this point open up sports the way we really want. And so as the minister responsible for sports, I want to caution those persons that are involved in these things, that they have to stop. I have said to the minister that I have my certain recommendations. I know that some of our people in the stakeholders in the sport industry are saying to us, we need to do certain things. So we are talking out to them. We are reaching out to them, giving us some proposals, and we are going to reach out to see how we can get these things. The people in the gym, for example, they have reached out to us because it's a fitness, it's a type of sport too. So they have reached out to us, and their consideration have been looked at. And I know the minister will reach out and say in a few, I think by today or tomorrow, what are going to be the conditions that will take place in terms of the gyms. There are certain people in the cricket industry that have approached us that they need to, they have a tournament coming up in July. They want to start to practice. So we have to look at certain conditions that has to be set out. The FIFA and FFB and PLB, we have to look at all of those issues that are facing them before we make a decision in terms of how we go about deciding what we're going to do about football. And then you have, of course, the volleyball discipline, the basketball discipline. All of these things we have to look at, but from a health perspective.
You alluded to the gyms, the discussion with the gyms. Does this mean that they're looking at a safe and reasonable way to reopen them in the near future? Yes,
I can tell you that the Minister of Health will make some announcements for the gyms. And I know that the people at the gyms will be very much pleased with some of the conditions that will be set out for those persons. I believe that we have listened to them. They have some very good ideas. They made some very good points. And from their presentations, we were able to come up with some good proposals.
Gyms have been closed since August. He's the highest-ranking U.S. military official to visit Belize since 2019, and over the last few days, Air Force's Southern Command Barry Cornish has marked that visit by meeting with senior officials from the Ministry of National Defense and Border Security, as well as the Belize Defense Force. Tonight, in a press release, the U.S. Embassy says that the visits were meant to emphasize a strong and enduring partnership between the United States and Belize. A release says Cornish's Air Force component conducts security and provides air, space, and cyberspace capabilities throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. And while gyms wait to hopefully be opened, the Magali family is waiting for a new home. Julie Magali lost her house back in December when a truck ran into it, completely destroying the structure and its contents. No one was injured, and the truck's insurance company promised her a new home before Christmas. In addition, the owner of the truck promised to pay Magali's rent since she was forced to move into an apartment for the time being. But both of those promises weren't fulfilled, and as the insurance company takes its sweet time to purchase a new home for the family of four, Magali's brother says she has to pay the rent out of her pocket. We spoke to him via phone.
That happened in December last year. The insurance company, the ICB, came and to the scene to see what had happened, and then they told me that they were going to bring my sister a house that was going to be before Christmas. But then after that, December passed, and then January, we're almost in 2 months' time, and nothing has happened. So till today, the attorney called and tell me that the ICB company called them about asking some other documents. We already gave it to them, but we're still waiting.
And where has your sister been living this time?
Okay, she has been renting a house, an apartment here in San Ignacio. But then Mr. Bahadur, the guy, the owner of the truck, I guess, he was the one that paid the first month. And I think they're charging she $450. He paid the first month, but then lately in the second month, it seems that he don't want to pay anymore. So I don't know if the insurance is the one that's supposed to pay that or he.
And did he make an agreement that he was going to cover the rent expenses?
Yes, at the beginning, that is what he told me, that he was going to take care of the payments. But then that is what he did the first month. But then after that, when the month due, my sister tried to call him, but he said that he doesn't have no money and he can't continue to pay. Yeah, it's hard for she because then, I mean, she had her house, you know. She even though it wasn't a big house, but it was her home where she was comfortable there. And then now she's renting when she may have his own house, and then the space where what she have right now, it's small.
The family's attorney, Steve Pereira, told us today that the insurance company contacted him just today, and perhaps after seeing the family's interview. He's hoping that the matter won't reach the courts.
Since then, we've verified that the vehicle, the truck, was insured by ICB Insurance. And as a result, we have contacted the owners of the truck, who then indicated to us to contact the insurance company, ICB Insurance. Now, the insurance company has already visited the site. They've already done their inspections. That was done on the 9th of December. And thereafter, we exchanged documents. We sent them all the documents that they requested, proof of ownership of the land, proof of ownership, a list of items that were damaged, including some cost estimates for the replacement of a home for the family. Now, since December, we had continued to communicate with ICB up until the 7th of January. However, after that, as our client has indicated, things did go completely silent, it's a sad event, no? Especially since we have made it known to both the owner of the vehicle as well as to the insurance company the severity of this situation and what it really, the hardship that it brings when someone is without a house. Now, as a result, we had no option, but we've sent a demand letter to the owners of the vehicle indicating that if we don't have this matter resolved, that either by him or his insurance company, that we'll have no option but to file a lawsuit against him in the court. Now, we're hopeful that that won't be the case and that ICB or the gentleman would make or provide us with a settlement before the end of this week.
Do you think that it may end up in the court?
We're hopeful that we don't have to reach that far because, as you know, court proceedings at times delay matters, and the court has its schedules quite packed up for a bit. What we're trying to do and what we have done is that we've communicated with companies that build wooden homes, similar homes, and some of these homes have been created already and they're sitting at these companies. So we're hopeful that one of these pre-made homes with similar size, similar structure that the Shish family had could be purchased. And from what I understand from those companies, that as soon as payment is received by them, they could immediately start moving so that they could place and transport one of the completed homes back on the property so that the family can start resuming with their lives.
The family's possessions were all destroyed, and Pereira has included the items in their claim as well. The Statistical Institute of Belize is reporting that the country's imports fell by 10.2% for December 2020 when compared to the same month in 2019. Domestic exports also went down by 18.2% in December. Declines were noted in the commercial free zone, which fell by 35%, and machinery and transport equipment, which went down by 19%. Imports of mineral fuels and lubricants went down by $4.3 million, with greater imports of grocery items such as instant noodles and margarine. The food and live animals imports category increased by $2.5 million. Merchandise imports for all of 2019 amounted to $1.6 billion. That's a 20.2% decrease, or $397.6 million less when compared to 2019, which almost reached the $2 billion mark. Domestic exports for December 2020 amounted to $21.3 million. That's a decrease of 18.2%, or $4.7 million when compared to exports from December 2019. This decrease was mainly due to the fact that there were no exports of crude petroleum last month. Merchandise exports for all of 2019 totaled $367.8 million, which is a decline of 11.1%, or $46.1 million when compared to the previous year. Police Commissioner Chester Williams and Assistant Police Commissioner Marco Vidal continued their two-day stopover in Dangriga town this afternoon with a meet and greet community session. The Compol and his team were there to listen to crime-fighting ideas of the residents in the neighborhoods that are at high risk for crime, violence, and gang activity. Viewers will remember that last Wednesday night, 23-year-old Dennis Anthony Robinson was killed at his doorstep in the monument site area of Dangriga. Robinson is a relative of a well-known gang figure. Yesterday, the PUP announced that their educational task force, which will focus on how to reopen schools safely and responsibly, hopefully for the upcoming school year. Well, without missing a beat, the opposition party, in the form of the Shadow Ministry for the Ministry of Education, issued a release condemning the composition of the task force. They complain that, quote, the composition reflects persons who are clueless about the realities of the average and the most disadvantaged Belizean student. This COVID-19 task force, as it is constituted, is in blue highlighter used to show up the incestuous nature of this administration's way of doing things, end quote. And if that wasn't already a mouthful, they even called out the BNTU, who they referred to as being now mute. After years of disagreements between the former MOE and the union, the Shadow Ministry has lashed out once again, saying they hope that the BNTU can, quote, find its voice to champion the issues for teachers, unlike its failure to advocate for the teachers whose retirements are now held up because this administration has hamstrung the Public Service Commission, the body that approves teachers' retirement. The union is calling, the UDP that is calling on the government to reconstitute the COVID-19 educational task force to make it more geographically balanced. As we told you last night, the decomposed body of a man was found in an area near the Benque Viejo Road. And while he was found without his head, police are not suspecting foul play. Reliable reports indicate that the incident has been ruled a suicide. The body was that of Oscar Correa Sr., who has been missing since December 28th. He reportedly went out with friends and did not return to his San Ignacio home. His head was found near his body, and the rope that was reportedly used was found nearby as well. Correa was buried by his family today. And that's all we have for you for tonight. Thanks for watching. With your news, I'm Endura Craig. Remember that you can see a streaming video of this newscast at 7newsbelize.com, brought to you by Digi for the best postpaid plans in the country. Remember now to wash your hands, to wear a mask at all times in public, and to keep your social distance. The curfew starts at 8 tonight, so please stay inside. Join me back here tomorrow at 6, and until then, have a good night.